always try to build as much of the product as possible as closest to the project site. When you look at projects, freight is always a big variable. And using this project that we're talking about today as an example, we actually built the entire project out of Cleveland, put it down the 71, down towards the job site, roughly 2.5, maybe 3 hours tops for a commute. And that makes the supply chain a very easy part of the process.
The mayor of Lebanon has been, a technologist and excited about solar since he was a kid, like many of us, and tracking the industry. And as a leader of the community, he has a responsibility to do right by his stakeholders. And they run their own municipal electric utility there. In Ohio, there's hundreds of smaller either cities or villages or regions that have their own utility, as opposed to the investor-owned utilities that serve the majority of the population. And so it's an opportunity for them to run their organization as efficiently as possible. They buy their energy, and they know that the rates are rising and there's volatility. They have to compete on the free market for extra power on super cold snaps like we're having right now. And so as a hedge against that volatility, having a portion of their energy being on site is something that they had explored. They looked at the numbers and the numbers did not pay off. It just didn't pencil economically. It wouldn't be economically responsible. And they revisited that after the IRA law passed, and with the elective pay or direct pay provision that would allow them to tap directly into the investment tax credit piece, which changed everything. Their numbers got way better, and along with the cost of solar going down in terms of efficiencies, and the cost of conventional power going up. And so there's a crossover point that they suspected was there. One of the pieces was they had land that they owned, called suboptimal land. It was in the floodplain, so it was not buildable for a school or public fire station. They couldn't sell it for commercial use or for private home developments. So it was a great use for that land. They decided to go solar. We moved forwards with it.
You've got an area that has a history of flooding, and you've got elevation concerns. And in this case, I think Geoff had mentioned that it really wasn't another purpose for this site. But normally when we see areas that are identified as floodplains, we know that we need to work closely with the customer to figure out what a minimum above floodplain is. So the base flood elevation that's showing on this chart is kind of what we use as a baseline, and we collaborated with the customer on a minimum 2.5 inch or 2.5 foot front edge and a 6 foot from the floodplain. So it's just about the topography and how the geotechs are done and how the land is identified. And a lot of times it's based off a history of floods or the potential of these events happening. In looking at the previous slide, we had individual layouts for each of those 3 arrays. And so what we did for each of those is we identified within that CAD layout pile points, and then we used that base flood elevation, and then obviously with the guidance of at least the 2.5 foot front edge, and we were able to take those measurements and kind of back them from the base flood elevations to come to a different pile height, or the pile heights that were needed. And so what you see on the screen is the longest one being the teal, where as a custom row former manufacturing all of our own products, we can adjust and design to wind, snow, loads, floodplains. And so what we did is we identified on the CAD blocks each of these pile points, identified, and you can see on the lower screen, where we kind of put together in the color coding of the whole layout. And then we work through a preliminary set and through a final CAD, walking through with Kokosing on approvals. And then I think just as an important part, before we shipped, we went through very detailed in our packaging and our labeling with the construction teams on what was arriving, what in what array, and how to go best go about it.